transgender people, okay, and this is the facts, transgender people have something like a 40% suicide rate. It is incredibly high.
Well, yeah, now, that's a difficult thing to fucking go through, and not everybody's gonna like have a happy ending.
Okay, hold on. But a difficult thing to go through is not actually what indicates a high suicide rate.
What do you think? What's it related to?
Black people in the Jim Crow South did not have a high suicide rate. They, it's not just that you go through hardships. Like my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. They didn't have a high suicide rate. Suicide rate indicates some type of mental issue.
But it's also a new thing. It's like there was like lots of high suicide rates between people of mixed races initially when that was started to be like a thing that
and that's evil too. and I'm against that too. So I'm being consistent.
Obviously, I'm just quoting stats. I didn't say I was for it.
That's interesting too. Look, I'm not saying that there might be some societal pressures that relate to suicide, but I actually kind of reject. That's like the lefties really love that worldview where they're like, the guy, I remember there was a guy at Rutgers who was a gay kid who committed suicide, and right away after that they go, you know why he did it? It's because all of his friends were homophobic and this, that, and then it turned out later that his parents disowned him when he came out, and you're like, well, maybe actually that had more. I mean, like, what actually makes you kill yourself?
Right. I mean, his friends probably didn't help.
Here's what's interesting.
Sure. But if you're looking at a root cause,
there's one weighs more than the other. But
here's the interesting
thing. One's helping.
What came to mind when the point that you made was a good point, that there wasn't a high level of suicide during slavery and during the Holocaust, but you also have a people who intrinsically have dealt with shitty situations for a long time, and so when you have the Great Depression and the crash, the stock market crash, rich white guys were jumping out the windows.
Well, that's a good point.
And black guys were going, it's really that bad.
This is probably going to say,
but that's a good point. That it's not necessarily about how hard the time is.
Yes.
It's about what your mentality is.
It's where you are in that moment, even if it is socially. It's a funny thing, is because I've said this. Anybody that's had a problem with when I talk to people about race and stuff like that, like black people intrinsically have found out ways to slip through the cracks and be successful in the context of a overall institutionalized racism situation and so when you talk about, I always reference Madam C.J. Walker, which first black female millionaire, 1911. So it's like, first of all, she's a woman, she's a black woman. And this woman found a way to, she sold black hair care products, which was very much under the radar. You didn't even think that there was a thing. Like white males didn't even think there was a
black. Greg Giraldo said to fucking, what is it, Cat Williams? He goes, Cat Williams, you're like Afro Sheen. Some white people have heard of you, but none of us know what you do. But that's like, white people are like, what the hell is
that's
this?
Why
just use our hair products.
And she was out of, she was under the, she slipped through the radio, slipped through the cracks with that, and literally became a millionaire. And we're not talking about a thousandaire.
Right.
We're talking about a millionaire.
And a millionaire in 1911 is got to be close to a billionaire
crazy.
Today, right?
But
it doesn't mean that...
It doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. It means that this woman was resourceful enough to slip through the cracks and find a way. And black people have always done that. Frederick Douglass was talking to abolitionists as well as to slave owners. Like he was, so we found, so you find, based on what the weight of life that puts on you, you get used to it.
It's why Jews are bankers.
Right.
It's why Jews are in banking, is because literally they were for I think it's something like close to 900 years in Europe. Basically, Christians weren't allowed to loan money with interest. That's considered unchristian or whatever.
Okay.
Right. So you could loan money, but you can't charge interest, so who the fuck wants to loan money as a business if it's just a loss? You're just giving someone money and risking it doesn't come back.
Right.
So Jews were fine with that.
We're good with that.
And so it was that, and loaning money is a fairly important part of an economy. Like you need, some people have ideas and other people have capital. And the capital's got to get to the people with ideas. So Jews just went into it and then they mastered it. And fucking now, we run.